Now, I really don't get ASUS sometimes, so they have all these cool products, and usually they are the first one to let us and everybody else in the world know that they have a new product out and they thought of something cool. But then they released this monitor. So this is pretty much the fastest gaming monitor you can currently get, and instead of putting it in their ROG lineup with all the bells and whistles and marketing, they actually put it in the affordable TUF gaming lineup, and they're barely talking about it. So I guess I'll do the talking for them. This is the VG279QM monitor. So it's a 27-inch Full HD monitor that has an IPS panel. It has 280 Hz refresh rate. It has adaptive sync. It is G-Sync compatible. It has HDR, and it has ELMB Sync. That is extreme low motion blur sync, which means that you can have an anti-motion blur on while having the variable refresh rate active, which is actually very rare in monitors. And then when you add the MSRP of 435 euros here in the Netherlands, this becomes a very, very interesting monitor to look into. Now, I am not sure what the pricing is going to be in the US. I've heard some speculations that it's going to be around $500, which I highly doubt, because it doesn't really happen that the US pricing is higher than the EU pricing. It's almost always the other way around. So I'm hoping that it's going to be actually down somewhere close to the $400 mark, but I'm not sure, we don't know, we will have to wait and see. So this is an awesome price for these set of specs, but it's still a lot of money. So let's test it and see, is it worth your investment? Let's go. This video is brought to you by Cooler Master and their MM711 Ultra Light Gaming Mouse. With the top optical sensor, solid Omron switches, beautiful RGB, and a weight of only 60 grams, the MM711 is a great mouse for serious gamers and all-around users alike. Check it out using the links in the description below. ASUS is actually using the earlier ROG design for the current generation of TUF monitors, which is actually a good thing. They are well built, stable, and I personally really like the more low-key design. It is also not that deep, so it works great on smaller desks, and considering the amount of really big screens I usually see here in the office, this 27-inch model reminds me that this is actually a very nice size for most gamers out there. Now, some real CSGO fanatics might consider it too large, but in my experience, you get used to it really fast, and the extra screen space over the 24-inch alternatives does improve the immersion. Now, this TUF model is missing some of the crazy ROG features as well as RGB, but I don't think that that is something you will miss. The bezels are fairly typical, but the stand itself is actually excellent. It is height adjustable by some margin, you can tilt it, you can rotate it vertically as well as horizontally. The stand also features some cable management, and there is a VESA mount option if you want to go that way. It comes with one DisplayPort connection, 2 HDMI connections, and a headphone jack. So it's nothing special, but still plenty. There's also a USB connection, but it's just pretty much there as a service port, but you can charge your phone with it, for example. The display also comes with built-in speakers, but they are actually pretty basic, so they're gonna be fine for an incidental use if you really need to, but if you want to game on it or watch a movie, you should use a proper set of speakers or a headset. As usual with ASUS, the OSD controls are great. The menus make sense and they're very easy to navigate through. You use a little joystick and a set of buttons that are very recognizable without having to look behind your screen all the time. As we've also come to expect from ASUS, there are the typical crosshair and shadow boost features to enhance your game, alongside dozens of other options, and the menu can keep your favorite or most used options in one place. I just really wish that the VG279QM came with the software control as well next to the OSD control, like we've seen in some recent ASUS monitor as well as some other monitors. Now, before I start talking about the gaming performance, I want to talk about this IPS panel. Now, the difference in image quality between a fast IPS panel and, for example, a fast TN or a VA panel is actually very, very big. So you have to decide for yourself if the image quality is something that is important to you when you're deciding on which monitor to buy. Some gamers just care about the speed, for example, and the price, and a TN monitor is completely enough for them. But if you have a fast IPS panel, it shows you that you can have a fast gaming experience with the great image quality and colors in one. And even though the really good TN panels have pretty decent image quality, if you use an IPS panel, you would definitely see that big difference in games. You get almost complete sRGB coverage and some pretty good color results right out of the box. There is a bit of oversaturation in general, but overall these results are great and perfectly usable for some light photo or video editing as well, even though 1080p resolution isn't that great for serious creative work. Gray balance is excellent as well. The contrast is not amazing, but very decent for an IPS display at 1134:1. The panel also has great uniformity with subjectively no real inconsistencies to worry about. Now, maximum brightness is solid at 361 nits or 463 nits if you turn the HDR on. That is pretty much plenty, even if you use this monitor in a well-lit room. Now, I know most of you don't really care about power consumption, but it's nice to see that it actually ranks among the most efficient gaming monitors out there, even with it being the fastest. So let's jump right into what you guys care about the most, and that is the gaming experience. And before you start worrying, don't, because gaming on this monitor is actually excellent. While some monitors out there just focus on having really high refresh rates, this monitor focuses on 3 separate things to make your gaming experience better. Now, the first one is pure speed with 280 Hz refresh rate. The second one is removing the motion blur, and the third one is adding some HDR to the mix. So when it comes to the 280 Hz refresh rate, now first you need to enter the OSD, enable the panel overclock, which allows you to take the 240 Hz base to 270 or 280 Hz refresh rate. The difference between 240 Hz and 280 Hz is actually visible side by side, and that is using both some internal benchmarks and another 240 Hz IPS monitor from ViewSonic as reference. Now, you won't see it right now as you are watching a 30 frames per second YouTube video, and you won't really tell the difference either if you just buy one, so either a 240 Hz or a 280 Hz monitor. But if you can compare them side by side, you definitely see the point in refresh rates beyond 240 Hz. If you compare it now to a 144 Hz monitor, the difference is like night and day. The overdrive is adjustable in 5 steps from 0 to 100%, with my preference being 80%. At this point, the response is amazing and you only have minimal ghosting with an insignificant amount of overshoot. Technically, in order to reach the ASUS 1 millisecond response time claim, you need to turn the overdrive all the way up, but that results in a ton of overshoot and an overall very unpleasant experience in fast-moving games. So don't worry about the 1 or 2 extra milliseconds for not having the overdrive all the way up. It is still crazy fast. Alright, let's talk ELMB Sync, and that's pretty much ASUS's technology to remove the motion blur by strobing the backlight. Now, the backlight strobing is not really new. It's an old technology that has been proven to give you the impression of that smoother, blur-free experience. Now, what's interesting about the ASUS ELMB Sync is that it combines that backlight strobing with a variable refresh rate. And considering the fact that the variable refresh rate is great for people that are using AMD cards as well as NVIDIA cards, this is great news. It works and it gives the moving objects even more sharpness. Now, considering the fact that the 280 Hz screen is already super sharp, if you combine it with ELMB Sync, it literally puts the moving image sharpness to a whole new level. ELMB Sync is not perfect, however. The main downside is that with ELMB Sync on, you roughly halve the maximum brightness and end up with a maximum of just 180 nits. Now, that's perfectly fine in dark rooms, but in a well-lit room, I find it too dark to use this feature. Also, as the strobing adjusts to the FPS of the game you're playing, if you're running lower FPS games, some people might experience ELMB Sync as uncomfortable. Now, thankfully, it's an option you can turn on and off, so nothing to worry about. Just expect to experiment a bit with it to find out whether you like having it on or not. I have to say that the HDR experience on this monitor is pretty limited. Technically, it meets the claims with a peak HDR brightness of 463 nits, but it lacks the wide gamut and local dimming of proper HDR experience. Now, I can't blame this TUF too much for that. Proper HDR monitors with local dimming are much more expensive, but buyers need to know that this is HDR light at best. It is not bad. That extra brightness boost definitely helps some games look a bit better, and it's worth turning on for HDR games like Assassin's Creed or Shadow of the Tomb Raider, for example, that aren't fast enough to benefit from ELMB instead. Just, don't expect miracles from this HDR. When it comes to backlight bleed, it can be sample specific, but this one has actually very little. Viewing angles, as expected of a decent IPS screen, are great as well. Now let's talk about the prices, and even though I don't know what the pricing is going to be in other regions, here in the Netherlands it costs 435 euros, and that is actually a pretty good price. Now, a decent 240 Hz TN panel is going to cost you from 300 euros and on, and a 240 Hz IPS panel is going to cost roughly the same. So, considering the fact that this is a 280 Hz panel and it has ELMB and some HDR, this monitor should be high up on your list if you're planning to buy a very fast monitor. My main concern is that for 500 euros, you can actually get a fast Quad HD IPS monitor. Now, it's not going to be nearly as fast as this one, but keep in mind, 1440p with 165 Hz is fast enough for most gamers out there, and 1440p is going to give you the great sharpness of the screen as well as enough space if you want to do something else than just game on your PC. So Full HD resolution on this monitor makes it pretty much primarily for people that just want to game on their PC and they really like fast games. And I'm still surprised that ASUS put their fastest monitor into the TUF gaming lineup instead of the ROG lineup. I do see the design being a bit basic for ROG monitors, and it doesn't have all the crazy features and connections that the ROG monitors have, but this monitor actually delivers where it counts for all the people out there that are looking to buy a very fast monitor. It is insanely fast, so 280 Hz is visibly faster than the 240 Hz alternatives we've seen so far. The ELMB works really well, and not to mention that the image quality on an IPS panel over the fast TN panels is on a different level. So this monitor pretty much shows that the fast IPS panels should be the future. Now, there is still some room for improvement. So, for example, the HDR is pretty basic and the ELMB only works good if you're gaming in a dark room. But that all aside, I personally really like this monitor. Now, that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below what do you think about this new TUF gaming monitor and about this review. Don't forget to subscribe, give me thumbs up, and see you in the next one. Bye.